Okay, it is 10:01. We're going to call this, open the public hearing on the redistricting committee's work officially at 10:02. So there's one attendee in the waiting room. Those who would like to ask questions or speak or make a comment are free to do so. This is, again, a public hearing, so this is a forum for the public to make their voices known, but there will not be an interactive debate at this time. There will be another chance for public comment prior to the town council meeting where this matter is being taken up. So with that, the public meeting is open. And if you would like to participate, please raise your hand, or if you're on the telephone, Bill, remind people how to indicate.
Telephone is *9.
*9. So with that, I see Tony DeQuilla is raising his hand. Can you let him in, Bill? Before Tony begins, I should state that Mary Beth Thornton, our chairman, apologizes for not being able to be here. She had a family emergency and is not able to attend. So I'm sitting in her stead.
Okay, Mr. DeQuilla is here. He just needs to unmute and he should be able to speak.
Tony?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had thought that Mrs. Anderson was going to conduct this public hearing, but I guess not. When my family moved to Trumbull in 1983, there were 7 voting districts. We voted at Middlebrooks Elementary School. We were able to walk to Middlebrooks School, which was less than a quarter mile away. 20 years later, for some unknown reason, the politicians decided to change the 7 voting districts to 4 districts. My voting district changed from District 5 to District 1. The voters in my small neighborhood were then forced to vote at Hillcrest Middle School, a travel distance of 2¼ miles. Today, you are telling us that your committee is recommending changing back to 7 voting districts, which I fully support. I emphasize, I fully support. However, you are telling me that my voting districts will now be District 6, a polling locations most likely to be Tasher Elementary School with a one-way travel distance of 3½ miles. So in summary, my neighborhood went from a voting districts 5 to 1 to 6. A voting location went from Middlebrooks to Hillcrest to Tashua, and a travel distance went from a quarter mile to 2¼ miles to 3½ miles. Over the past 35 years, and after many changes, the voters in my neighborhood are being forced to travel further and further away to exercise our right to vote. I don't think that's fair. I now have a recommendation that I hope that the redistricting committee will seriously consider. Surgically, it's in parentheses, remove my neighborhood from voting District 6 and place it in District 5. My neighborhood includes Woodlawn, Ellsworth, Valley View, Rockland, Norwood, and Rexview. At the same time, surgically remove parts of District 5's northernmost section and place this area into District 6 in an attempt to maintain substantially equal voting district populations as is currently proposed. My proposal will introduce a second split district, that is a local voting district with multiple state representative districts. As you know, voting District 5 currently is a split district. Adding District 5 as a second split voting district will be compliant to the committee's guidelines, specifically, and I quote, recommend, end quote, recommend the plan that has few split districts as possible. I should also state that historically, District 5, along with District 6, were both split districts at the same time. That was in the 1980s, 1990s. I would like to thank you and your committee, Madam Chairman, for all your hard work on this critical issues. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Aquila, for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? I see 3 members in the attendees. Mr. Block has raised his hand. I think he's being led into the room.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh, members of the council, and other folks on the call this morning. So I'm going to just outline very briefly for you the concern that I have had with the redistricting to 7 districts from the beginning. And this also goes back a number of years when this came up again also. One of the issues that I've had with redistricting from the beginning is that there has really been no quantifiable data that's been shown that indicates that the voters, when they make their decision, are supportive of a change in districts, regardless of what some have said publicly. It's easy to find a couple of thousand people or a few thousand people to sign a petition, to create a survey. Any of us can do that for any issue, and we'll be able to find a few thousand people in town who will sign one or another or many. I'm unclear how you can pinpoint with any accuracy at all the number of representatives, town council representatives, currently the residents know Trumbull has. I'm also not confident that there's any quantifiable way to find out whether residents know, in fact, what district they're in, how many districts there are, or who, in fact, represents them. That is not atypical in communities like Trumbull. So while some, view this to have been a pillar of the campaign, I think what's more important is what is the voters' interest and what ultimately serves the needs of the community at best. So while the council approved, the charter revisions from the Charter Commission, my belief is that when you establish a super minority, and I've been very vocal about this, a super minority has the ability to thwart the will of the voters. If the voters, for whatever reason, regardless of the number of districts, choose a overwhelming majority from one or another party, then the governance of the town lies with them. That's their choice. When you remove the ability of the voter, and that's ultimately who should be making the decision, when the voter's will is removed, then, and this is only in rare cases, I understand this, in terms of ordinance passing of nominations to things like the Ethics Commission, you have then removed the voice of the voter who has made the decision as to who they want to represent them. And it doesn't matter which party it is. Democrats have had supermajorities, Republicans have had supermajorities, and neither party has had supermajorities in the past. And once again, that has been at the will of the voter. I am concerned, strongly concerned, that extending the minority voice is not what minority representation was ever intended to be. Minority representation was intended for the minority to have a voice. It was not intended ever to have either an equal voice or a voice where it impedes the will of the majority, of the overwhelming majority in the case of a supermajority, when it comes to the issues that a supermajority is required for. I've not been convinced of that. There are many who are not convinced of that. I am opposed and will be vocally opposed throughout the election season to this, because that is not what minority representation was intended for. Minority representation, in all honesty and in all fairness, was intended literally for minorities. It was not intended to be equal. It was not intended to impede, again, the will of the overwhelming majority. And ultimately, it is the voters who should have the final say on who they want to represent them. And that can be done in 5 districts. It can be done in 4 districts. The notion that these districts are imbalanced is a false notion, in my opinion. The reason I believe it's a false, and I'll close with this, the reason I believe it's a false notion is that Trumbull is not the United States. We don't have separate states that are governed. We have one town that is governed by one people that serves one people. So whether you're in Long Hill or Tashel, whether you're in Daniels Farm or Nichols, we have said over and over again on both sides of the aisle that Trumbull is one community. I don't believe that happens when you create this kind of a split through the town. So every voter has representation. Every voter has equal representation, whether you have 1 district, whether you have 4 districts, whether you have 5 districts, whether you have 7 districts. The number of districts is not what I'm opposed to. It's the increase in minority representation for either party that thwarts the will of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Block. Before you go, can you please state your address for the record?
Sure. 60 Ridgeview Avenue.
And finally, at the risk of stepping into personal bounds, I would just like to express condolences. I understand that your father passed earlier this week, and on behalf of the council, we do express our sincere condolences.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, would anyone else like to make a public comment? We have 4 attendees remaining in the participants room. Mrs. Rabinow, would you like to make a statement?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would. I'm Jean Rabinow, 17 Fairview Avenue, Trumbull. A couple of things that have come up have nothing to do with the number of districts or the redistricting plan. One of them is, where are the polling places going to be located? We don't know. All right, that's going to be up to the registrars of voters and even if not, even if we stay at 4, depending on what the vote is in November, the location of the polling places within each district is going to be up to whoever is the elected pair of registrars at the time. And if you have a concern that the polling place in your district is too far to drive, please let the registrar's office know, because I think this is an issue that does deserve severe and serious reconsideration. Driving times are a problem. Parking is a problem. We want the polling places to have enough spots so that the registrar's office doesn't start getting calls. On election day, I was driving for 15 minutes. I couldn't find a space, and I went home and I didn't vote. Right now, the plan that the redistricting committee has proposed only has 1 split district, and I believe that's District 2. As somebody who has worked the polls, I am strongly in favor of minimizing split districts just to cut down on the confusion on the day. And speaking personally, I like the idea of 7 districts because since we've gone from 7 to 4 districts, most of my town reps can't manage to go door to door throughout the districts because the districts are too big. So I don't even know who is necessarily representing me. Back in the days when we had 7 districts, people used to actually pretty much hit every single door in each district that they represented. And I got to talk to those people. I'd like to be able to do that again. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rabinow. Is there any further public comments? Please indicate by raising your hand in the participant room or dialing *6 on your telephone.
Star 9.
Star 9, sorry. Star 9. Okay, we'll kind of let it sit for another minute or two, but does anyone would like to make a comment otherwise amongst our group?
Jason, it's Tony Scinto. How are you?
Hi, Tony.
Excuse me. Sorry, Jason. My minority report will be coming. It's just getting the person who, just having someone else look it over so that the grammar is correct. And one thing that I had that brought up at the beginning of the process was the polling places, but we decided that they were going to wait till after to do that. The one thing that there's going to be a problem if it's kept the current way is that the proposed District 7 has no school in it. There's not a public school in the district. So either they're going to have to send the District 7 people out of the district to vote, or they're going to have to go to a private building to make a polling place. That was one thing that that was left out of the current proposal. So the backup, you know, and again, one other thing was they always talked about driving distances and times. In the proposal, the farthest point of District 7 is up by Misha Hill. The district is designed like in one section like a teepee, like a point. So say for hypothetically, you put a polling place at Frenchtown out of the district, which is hypothetical, okay? That's at least a 15-minute drive with no traffic because there's no easy way to get to Frenchtown from anywhere. So those are the three things that that I had a concern about with the new proposal. Those are the three things. And I remember doing this back in 2012, and I remember Mr. Holden trying to find polling places, and I brought this up before. It was a chore, and Bill had a lot of problems he went to multiple places, and I'm not going to tell you where the places were now, but he had a hard time getting a polling place because of insurance concerns and stuff like that. So those are my 2 cents for now. And then we're going to revisit this probably in September because I didn't see it on the agenda in August. So I figured we'll get to that at that time if that's what's going to happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Any other comments? Yes, Mrs. Anderson.
Hi, good morning. Just to clarify an issue about the report, assigning polling places or discussions about polling places was not in the charge given to this committee by the town council. So though we did on occasion discuss the issue, it was not ours to consider. As Mrs. Rabinow said, it is the purview of the Registrar of Voters, and we certainly hope that they will take that into consideration when they are trying to find a location. I just wanted to clarify that.
Great, thank you very much.
By the way, Laurel Anderson, 5241 Main Street. Sorry.
Thank you, Laurel. I'm not seeing any further hands raised or people joining the attendees room. So I will assume that there is no further public comment, but I will give it a going once, going twice. All right, I will now, it is 10:21. Unless there's an objection, I will close the public hearing. Any objection? All right, the public hearing is closed. And since we're not meeting, I don't think we need a motion to adjourn, but I think we are concluded with our public hearing. thank everyone for coming out on a Saturday morning, and hope to see everyone soon, and stay safe and stay well.